Hi, I'm Declan from DecPlay, and in this video I'll show you the easiest way to learn how to play piano by ear. Now, many think that playing by ear is a talent that only certain people are born with, or that you need to learn lots of scales and music theory. Well, I'm pleased to tell you that is just not true. In this video, I'll show you a simple method that has helped thousands of people to learn to play piano really quickly. Now, everyone has some natural musical ability, and this method helps you harness that to learn to play by ear, whether you are a total beginner or whether you already play piano. Now, by playing by ear, what I mean by that is that you can think of a song and play it right away on piano without needing to read sheet music or having to practice and memorize it beforehand. Now, it's my favorite way to play because it enables you to play with confidence and freedom. And it's great whether you just want to play at home and just instantly play a song that you like, or to be the life and soul of the party and instantly play songs that other people shout out and request. At the end of this video, you will understand the simple process to overcome the 3 biggest problems that prevent people from learning to play by ear. So the first of these is confusion over the amount of notes that exist. Either if you've seen a sheet music, there's a lot of notes in there, or if you're listening to something on the radio, again, there's a lot of notes. So confusion about how possibly can you work all that out in your head. And also the fact of there are 12 different musical keys, which makes it even more complicated. The second problem is how to identify the melody and the chords in your head without even having a keyboard there. The third thing is how to play impressive sounding music. Now, this covers things like how to progress from beginners to advanced level quickly, how to play in any of the musical keys, how to have fun playing, and this covers things like playing with freedom and getting the foundation for improvising and composing. Now, in case you're wondering where this process came from, here's a bit of background. After 12 years of classical piano lessons, I could read music and pass the examinations, but I couldn't do anything that I considered fun. And I wanted to learn how to play by ear like Sir Paul McCartney, my hero. So many methods I came across were either too confusing with excessive amounts of music theory, or they were incredibly slow with tedious approaches like randomly hitting keys on the keyboard until you find the right note. And it took me years to realize that the way we hear music is very different from how music is traditionally written down. And this was the key to unlocking the natural ability that we all possess. And it took me several years to develop a process which I now call EarPlay, because it's playing by ear. And this now makes playing by ear easily accessible to everyone. So this is a unique approach which is focused on being simple and intuitive and overcoming the main 3 problems that people encounter. So the first of these is that written music in the form of notation or guitar chords doesn't reflect how we hear music. The same song can be played in various musical keys, which means you can start on any of the 12 different keys on the keyboard. There's 7 white keys and 5 black that are simply repeated across the keyboard. So there's 12 different versions of every song, each of which has a different set of melody notes and chords. So this complexity really hinders the process of learning to play by ear. So I'll demonstrate this and what the solution is with the first few bars of Beethoven's Ode to Joy. Okay, so that's one version and one starting point, and I can go. I can play it at any place on the keyboard, like. So you can play it at any starting point, and our ear clearly hears that that is the same piece of music, irrespective of the notes we're playing. So if the notes are changing and the chords are changing, yet our ear clearly hears it's the same thing, what is going on? Well, this is the key to understanding how to play by ear, is that we recognize songs not by any specific notes that are played, but by the movement of the notes relative to each other. So this is so important. The solution then is to name musical notes in the way that mirrors how we hear music by using a relative scale. Now, as Western music is based on a standard 7-note scale, you might know it as do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, like that. There's 7 notes that you can start at any point on the keyboard. We can number these from 1 to 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can basically then name the notes of a tune based upon this relative scale, and the scale can start at any point on the keyboard, and like our ear, we'll just hear instantly that is the same tune, irrespective of your starting point, without worrying about what is the actual note called we're playing. We don't care. We just care about the relative movement of that note. So let me show you what I mean by that. Here is an example of the tune of Ode to Joy. So I'm showing an example of starting this relative scale. I've just picked a key on here to start the scale from, and it can be started from any point, as I'll show later on, but this is the simplest way. So this is the tune. Simply by following those notes, and that lets you identify those notes easily by ear and do a lot of advanced things, which I'll show you later on. And this works just the same for any type of music, so for pop songs as well as classical music. So we have the chorus of Let It Be. Exactly the same way. Also, no matter how many notes you see on a sheet of music or how many notes you hear on the radio, they can be written down or thought of by ear with just 2 things, just the melody and the chords. So those are the only 2 things which you need to work out in your head in order to play all of those notes that you can hear. So how this works is we have the melody, which is 1 note at a time, which is the tune, which we've just shown. So and then every other note that is there is to accompany that melody. So these all of the other notes can be written as a single chord. And a chord is usually made up out of 3 notes, and we can play a chord very easily on the keyboard with a simple shape. And that shape then is flexible enough to play it in a simple way or a more advanced way, and it's the same 3 notes. So these can be written down and played like, or played at which I'll show later on. But the concept is then, this way of thinking of music, just with these 2 things, opens the door to playing by ear. And there's a whole load of advantages of doing this. So the numbers of the melody and the chord stay the same no matter what musical key you are playing in. So it removes the complexity of 12 different song sheets per song. It identifies the distance between notes much easier. So when you're working out, well, what are those numbers? It's much easier to work out like a 1, 5, 6. What's the distance between 1 and 5? Well, it's 4 notes away. Whereas if you're thinking of letters like a C to a G, what's the distance between C and G? Or if you're thinking on the do, re, mi, fa, what's the distance between do and so? That's a lot slower for our brains to work out, especially if you are new to piano. Your skills will develop much faster as well, because suddenly you'll see through the complexity of traditional sheet music and chord letters to see the simple patterns that connect songs irrespective of what key they are in. So as well as playing any song you like without having to read sheet music, it also makes other fun skills much easier, like improvising and composing. And you can write any note at all in this format, so you can use a symbol of a plus and a minus just exactly the same way as a sharp and a flat. So you can write any of the notes, any of the black notes, or any of the complicated chords. Again, it can be written in this format. So if you want more tips to help you learn to play by ear and to follow a step-by-step plan with ear training lessons to help you identify the melody and chords, then you can get a free starter pack at the link below. So the next challenge to overcome is how you identify melody and chords by ear. So the process I'm going to show you now lets you identify them without needing to fiddle around on the keyboard and test out different things. So with practice, it can just take a few seconds to work out the notes of a song in your head, enabling you to play it straight away. So this is great at parties when people shout out a song and you can just think for a second or two and then go, yeah, and then play it. So, okay, we'll do this first of all for the melody notes. So how you work out a melody note in your head is you imagine a note. Now you can either physically hum this. This is fun if you're not a singer, like I'm not a singer. So, so hearing yourself hum or sing when you are not used to it is fun. So, but as you can't hear what's in my head, I'm going to have to do it now. So you can pick any note. It's not important what the note is. It's just a starting point from which we'll work out how far away the melody notes are from that point. So we can go, okay, that can be our starting point. Then we've got our scale of 7 notes. That's the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti kind of thing. So that's our 1. So then we simply just work out where is the tune on that scale. So, so if we're working out, so that's our first note. And our starting note was. So where is from? 1, 2, 3. So we know our first note is 3. 3, 3. And then where does it go? Does it go up or does it go down? 3, 3. Goes up. And is it going up by 1 or several? It's going up by 1. 3, 3, 4. And then where does it go from there? 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you can just work out in a relative way from our starting point, which can be any note. We're not interested what the note is. We're just where is it relatively from that starting point. So we know that tune is 3, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 2. Okay, so then we can apply that on the keyboard. So again, you can pick any starting point if you know the scales. If you know piano scales, you can pick any one. But if you don't know scales, then I recommend you just start with the key of C, which is effectively find a pattern of 2 black notes, go 1 down to the left, and that's always a note 1. So I'm going to start up here. So with this note 1 here, then we've got our white notes are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we've already worked out without a keyboard that we knew this starts on a note 3. So my note that I worked it out may or may not be this note. We don't care. So now we worked out it's a 3. So 3. So it was 3, 3, 4, 5. So that's how easy it is to work out tunes. Now most songs only stick to these standard notes of the scale, like the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti scale. Occasionally some go off it, and again that's very easy to hear when they do because it sounds unusual. And again there's very simple ways of identifying what they are. And the tune can go lower as well, which I'll show you later how to do that. But that's how easy it is to identify a tune without a keyboard and then apply it. Of course, when you're starting, it's okay to have a fiddle around if you want, but I recommend that, say, if you just play the first note like a 1, and then just try and work it out in your head. Da 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 da, and count da 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 da, 3, 2, 1. So try and work that out, because that's how you will then acquire the skill to work it out in your head without having to fiddle around on the keyboard. And it's a lot easier than you think. There are lots of tips as well. I'll just give you a couple now. So when a tune is, say, jumping, so it's quite easy if it's stepping up and down by small amounts, that's pretty easy. But if it's jumping from like a 1 to a 3, what you can do is you can, over time, identify songs that have that jump. And then, so like When the Saints Go Marching In, so you know that jump, which is a 1 to a 3, that distance is When the Saints, so you know that's a third, a 1 to a 3, because you know it's When the Saints Go Marching In. A 1 to a 4 could be Amazing Grace, or it could be Here Comes the Bride. So it's very quick to go, you know, these intervals that other people spend a lot of time talking about, intervals and things, and it's, you know, it's super simple. So once you've worked out the tune, you can either just keep it in your head and just play totally from your ear and just play the keys, or you might want to write it down for future reference. So here is the tune, say, for Let It Be. So again, we would, the same process, we would find and then on the chorus we would think, okay, how does the tune fit relative to that starting point? Da 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 da, 3, 2, 1, and then it jumps 3, 5, 6, 5, da da da. So you can write that down, and if you're writing it down, again, a tune can go lower than your starting point, so it's the same 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but just to differentiate the low numbers from the higher numbers, you can put a line under the low ones when you're writing it down. So if it goes down to a low 6 and a low 5, you can write a line under the 6 and the 5 to show that they are lower. Okay, next, how to learn to play chords by ear. So I'll show you a very simple way to play chords. So chords are usually 3 notes played at the same time, and they are the foundation of all of the accompaniment that backs the melody. So you can play chords. We'll start off here with on a note 1. So again, we'll go just to the left of the 2 black notes, and we're going to play the first note, and then we're going to skip a note, play 1, skip a note, and play 1. Okay, so you could think of this as 1, 3, 5, but it's easier just to think of the shape with a gap in between, and then you're starting on note 1, so that is called chord 1. Then you can play the 6 standard chords that let you play most songs just by keeping that shape and moving your hand up. So now we're starting on note 2, so this is chord 2, then chord 3, then chord 4, chord 5, and chord 6. Now chord 7 is unusual and it's not usually used, so we're just going to ignore that. So we're just going to work with the 1 to 6, which, as I say, lets you play the vast majority of songs. And what's even better is loads of songs are playable just with 4 of those, just with 1, 4, 5, and 6. You can play most songs just with those. So, and even better than that again, 1, 4 and 5 is the foundation of Western music, like classical music, and lots of folk songs only use 1, 4, 5. You got, I think, things like Happy Birthday. So I'll play you a few tunes now just using those. All rock and roll is usually just 1, 4, 5. So this is the most basic way of playing it, but I'll play it so you can visually see what's happening. I'm only going to move my hand up and down the keyboard, keeping the same shape between 1, 4 and 5. That's all I'm going to do, okay? So you can play, say, some rock and roll, twist and shout. Such as La Bamba. And again, you can break up the notes like that. So there's, you can play Happy Birthday. Auld Lang Syne. There's literally just thousands of songs. Even say Ode to Joy is 1, 4, 5 in that first section. So incredibly simple. And what's even better, identifying these by ear is really, really simple too. So here is a simple 3-step process for doing that. So the first thing to understand is that we have, with this scale of 1 to 7 notes, okay, the scale can start at anywhere on the keyboard, but if you just listen to the scale, note 1 and chord 1 is like the home, and it's like a gravity that everything wants to pull back to that gravity point. So if it's a happy song in a major key like that, then it pulls back to chord 1 and note 1. If it's minor like that, sounds a bit more sad, then it pulls back to 6, so note 6 and chord 6. So that's the home for minor songs. But most songs that we play tend to be in major key like that. Okay, so the very first step of our 3-step process is to ask ourselves, does this sound like it's home? So with practice, again, you'll get to hear that when a tune is not at home, it sounds like unresolved. So like, that's home. If you ended there, it's like, oh, not quite finished. That's home. Oh, not resolved. Feels like it wants to go home, like that. So most songs will end on a note 1 and a chord 1. It's uncanny. Okay, so that's a great way to start off knowing where to start. You know, it'll often start on chord 1 and very often end on chord 1. So that's the first step. The second step is the chord major or minor? So of the 6 chords, you've got 1, 4 and 5 are major. They sound more happy. You've got 2, 3 and 6 are sad. So out of the 6 chords, you can split them into 2, and are they happy or are they sad? So once you've been through step 1, is it the home? Yes, no. Is it happy home or sad home? Okay. So if it's not one of those and it's a happy chord, it's going to be 4 or 5 almost all the time. Okay. So so we can use that for, well, I'll actually show you the next thing, then I'll apply it. Okay. So the third test then is the melody note. Unless it sounds like it's clashing, then the melody note will be in the chord. So what I mean by a clash is, so that's a clash, and that's not, that's in the chord. So every note that's not in the chord will clash. That's in the chord. That clashes, and that's in the chord. So I mean, that note there is the same note as there, just in a lower place on the keyboard. So that's our third test, is you just look at the melody note and you see which chord fits that. That's a melody note. So the easiest way to do that, super easy way, is you see the melody note can be at the bottom of the chord. So let's pick, say, on Ode to Joy, we'll start off with, let's assume that it starts on chord 1, because most songs do. So let's just give that a go. And we know that the melody is note 3. Okay, so we're going to start with chord 1. Yeah, that sounds right. Now here we know the chord changes, because we don't want to stay on that. So we've got to change chord. So it's not going to be the home, because we're moving from the home. Secondly, is it major or minor? Well, I know it's major because I've trained my ear. So with practice, you would know that. But let's say we don't even know that. Let's say you're not sure yet, is it major or minor? Let's go to the third rule. The note sounds like it's sweet. It's in the chord. It's not clashing. Okay, if you listen to Ode to Joy, that note isn't clashing with the chord. So let's try it out now. So if that note is in the chord, it could be at the bottom, the middle, or the top note of the chord. So let's try the bottom note. Would make it a 5. Yes, it is. So, okay, that's one option there. The next, it could be in the middle of the chord. So we take our chord shape, this idea of skipping a note. So if it's in the middle of the chord, we have a note skipped on either side. So that's a chord 3, would go with a 5. Is it that one? No, that's not right. And it could be at the bottom of the chord, which means then it's a chord 1. So no, we've said it changes from there. So it's not chord 1, it's not chord 3, so it is chord 5. So that's how easy it is. Your choice of which chord it could be is usually a maximum of 3 choices. Often it's 2, and then with practice you can immediately identify with those 3 rules, and you know exactly what the chord is without having to touch a keyboard. And that's how you can instantly play songs. Here's another bonus tip as well. There's an extra way, which you probably don't need because the other ones will be easy enough. But if you've got a fast movement of chords, this extra bonus rule often can be useful. So you just follow the bass note. So if you're listening to a song on the radio, listen to what the bass is doing, where the bass is moving. And the bass is usually the first note of the chord. So, for example, for Let It Be, on the last line of the chorus, so you'll hear the bass dun, 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 is going down in steps, dun, 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 and then you know it ends on, you can feel it ends on chord 1, and like I say, most songs do. So you know it ends on 1. Again, you could work out that was a chord 4, but you can sort of hear it's going down in steps. So you can just go 4, 3, 2, 1 without having to spend too much time thinking about the 3 and the 2. So that's a little quick way. So as I say, those 6 chords, you can play the vast majority of tunes, pop songs, simple classical pieces, just with those. Some songs use some non-standard chords that go off the beaten track, and again it's very easy to hear those, and there's some simple rules as to how to identify and play those too. Now the third challenge to address is how you can play impressive music from just such simple instructions, just these 2 things that we're working out in our ear. So this is down to playing patterns. Okay, so the melody is just a single note all the time. It's always only ever a single note. That's very simple. So where does all the impressive stuff happen? That's in the chords. So a chord can be as simple as a beginner style, that kind of chord 1 like that. But the same 3 notes, the 1, 3, 5, are playable in various places on the keyboard. You can play 1s, 5s. You can play them in the right hand at the same time as the melody. You can play 1, 3s and 5s up here as well. So this is all a chord 1. So by changing your playing pattern, by the way you play that chord and the rhythm you play those notes of the chord. That then changes it from being a beginner to an advanced, whilst you're still only thinking of the exact same chord. So it gets super easy to go from beginner to advanced. So you could play Let It Be in the beginner style. You could just break up the same notes. It's exactly the same notes. I'm just playing them in a sequence. Or you can change the playing pattern to change those notes to a more advanced style of playing the chord. And that's how you also play other styles like blues, rock and roll. Again, it's simply changing the pattern. It's exactly the same instruction, exactly the same melody note, exactly the same chord. Okay, so next, how do you play in lots of different musical keys? So I've shown you how to play in the key of C here, but the beauty of the relative scale is it's not tied to any particular note. So we can move the scale anywhere we want on the keyboard, and the instructions of the tune stay exactly the same. So the first thing to notice before I go into how to do that is most people will never need to, because every song sounds absolutely fine in the key of C. It'll sound just as good as any other key. So there's no need to start playing it in lots of different keys, because every time you change that scale, the distance between the notes has to stay the same. So you'll notice there's a short gap between 3 and 4, that there's no black key, and between 7 and 1. So you have to keep that same rules system when you move, which means you have to play certain black notes and not play other ones just to get the same sound. So it's not a more advanced way of playing, it's just you have to learn all these rules for the scales. So there's no point to do that. I think you're better spending that time that you learn 12 different rules of scales, spend that time improving your style and learning more songs. But if you wanted to, the easiest way, if you have a digital keyboard, you can simply use a transpose button to play in different styles, in different keys. So I can play in the key of C like that and just use the transpose function. That's now moved it up into the key of E. And I can move it down to that's now in B flat. So I can play in any key just by changing the transpose function. So so then if you do need to play in a different key, which is usually only if you're going to accompany a singer, then the only time that you need to do what I'm about to show you is probably if you are on an acoustic piano playing with a singer and the singer wants you to change the key to suit their voice. Then you might need to do this, which is play in a different key. So all we do is we simply change our starting point. So instead of a C being our note 1, we pick whatever other key we want. So the next key I find most useful if I'm singing at parties, so I've got a sing-along and I want to change the key to suit people's voices, I usually then would go to G. So that's a note G there. So this is now my note 1. So again, with practice, that's very easy just to look at that and you know that's note 1. So if you're playing Let It Be, 3, 2, 1, like that. But if you're not used to it, what you can do is, again, just move your numbers physically across like that. So now G is 1. And the only rule that you have to learn, just to keep that same shape of the scale, is because between a 7 and a 1, there is no gap. So when you're changing your 1 to here, so you have to play that black note there. That's the kind of rules you have to learn if you're changing your scale. So we have to remember there's 7 is a black note. So then we can play the same instruction for Let It Be, 3, 2, 1, with chord 6. So that's how easy it is to transpose to any other key. So hopefully you can see there, with such a flexible framework, only 2 things to think about in your head. It's much easier than following a lot of rigidly prescribed notes on a page. You can create your own style, playing levels from beginner to advanced, different styles like blues, rock and roll, reggae. And by focusing now on your ear hearing the melody and the chords, this is the foundation and the knowledge for how you can improvise and compose. So yeah, we've got students who've gone from not playing through to playing piano and writing their own music within a few weeks or months. Here's some examples of some students who've had no previous piano experience who are using this approach now.
Of us.
Here's some examples of some students who had some previous piano lessons in childhood, so they could read notation, but they haven't played for quite a few decades, and they are now using this approach to play by ear. So if you want more tips to help you learn to play by ear and to follow a step-by-step plan with ear training lessons to help you identify the melody and chords, then you can get a free starter pack at the link below. Thanks for watching.